Hi, my name is Eric. I am a fifth-generation American born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, and I am shooting this video in November of 2019 out in the Mojave Desert of California. Now, this video is home movies from my family in the 1960s, which is before I was even born. But I wanted to give you a little introduction of myself so that you would know who was doing all the narration. So here we go with a little narration for these family videos from the 1960s. Now, this was all shot originally on 8mm film, and it was a silent film camera, so unfortunately we have no audio for any of this. I do have this image of the house where this footage was shot. This first clip is at 4616 Bearwald Avenue in Cleveland, Ohio. This is the only footage that exists of my great-grandfather, Frank Prasek. He was my maternal grandmother's dad. And he was actually alive when I was very young. I was maybe, 3, 4 years old. And he would come over to the house because we just lived a few houses down on the same street on Bearwald. And he would come over every Sunday after church. And I remember he would give me pennies all the time. Every time he'd stop over, he'd have a penny to give to me. And I always called him Teeny Grandpa because he was shorter than my grandfather. So my great-grandfather, Frank Prasek, I always called him Teeny Grandpa. And this footage right here, I believe, is in the backyard at 4616. He actually had that house built when he was a young man. And yeah, like I said, this is it. This is the only footage of him that exists. And some of this footage right here, when you see it kind of go out of focus a little bit sometimes, that might be our fault when we were doing the transfer from the original 8mm onto high 8 video. This dog right here was a little Shih Tzu dog that I don't remember, but I've never heard good things about this dog. Apparently it was a bratty, snotty, kind of, just a cranky little dog. And I think they got rid of it just because of that. Like after a while, it was just like, okay, it tries to bite everybody and stuff like that. It was just... But there's a surprising amount of footage of this annoying dog playing in the snow here. Don't know exactly what year this is. Again, this is the 1960s sometime. Now, this is the wedding shower of my uncle, Jim, and his wife, Linda, his first wife. Again, this is way before I was born, so I don't know who most of these people are. Right there, that's Linda coming down the steps. And on the left-hand side of the frame, you can see my grandmother, Lenore. And that right there is my Uncle Jim. And this is just footage of them opening presents at the wedding shower. I'm not even sure where this happened. Like, I don't even know what house this was in or anything. So unfortunately, stuff like this I won't be able to tell you a whole heck of a lot about. And sadly, a lot of people in these videos have all passed away. None of them are around. Linda is still around. There's my grandmother again. And here, of course, the footage is so dark. I really did try to fix it and brighten it up, but I have no idea what some of this is because the footage is pretty dim. But yes, my Uncle Jim passed away. that Aunt Linda, she's still around, and I believe that might be it. Like, out of this whole video and all the people that you see here, Linda might be the only one who's still around. And this footage is, well, this is when you start to see the way that my grandfather was shooting a lot of this. The joke is that they call this style of shooting fire hose. It was something that happened a lot in home movies back in this time because people kind of shot home movies as if they were still photos. I mean, you can see this footage right here. It's just 1 or 2 seconds, right? And then it cuts to the next 1 or 2 second shot. And the camera just pans around really fast. And so all of this kind of thing is just because they were basically using the film cameras kind of like still cameras and just trying to take these quick little shots with them. And it's kind of awkward, makes it a little difficult to watch. But this person right here, Elizabeth Muss, this is the only footage of her that exists. She is my great-grandmother, and she is the mom of my maternal grandfather. So she was married to Peter Muss, who is my grandfather's dad. So this footage right here, Raymond Starr and Bernadette Starr, all of this took place at their house on Ivywood in Brooklyn, Ohio. This is their backyard swimming pool. Bernadette, or my Aunt Bernie, she is my grandmother's sister. And that right there is my Uncle Ray playing in the pool with, I'm not sure who that is, one of his kids, I think. I believe that might be, I don't know. I don't even want to say because I'll probably say it wrong. But yeah, they had this great swimming pool in their backyard. You can see they had a slide right there. And every summer, like when I was like a young teenager and maybe a little bit before the start of my teens, I would go over there with my Uncle Jack a lot of time, and we would just work on the pool. You know, we would clean the pool. We would help get it ready every spring and summer to start using again. Right here you can see that's my Aunt Bernie right in the middle, and that was my grandmother Lenore to the left. And right there, that is... I don't think that... No, it's not my Uncle Ray, because I think Ray is still in the pool. And here's one of the kids going down the slide. That fiberglass slide wasn't all that fun when it was dry. When it was wet, it was pretty cool. You could actually hook a hose up to it, and then it would just constantly stream water down the slide, and you could slide down into the pool. So they're in the shallow end of the pool right now. It's about 3 feet deep on this side of the pool. And you can see how wide it was. I don't know, maybe it was 20 feet wide and probably about 50, 60 feet long, something like that. And this was over in Brooklyn, Ohio, is where their house was at. And not sure who that is. That again right there is my grandmother, Lenore. That's my Aunt Bernie. And yes, I definitely have very fond memories of playing around in this pool in the summers. You also notice that during a lot of this footage, we kind of slow it down. It kind of just drops into slow motion every now and then. And that was mainly us trying to compensate for the fire hose footage. You know, it would often pan back and forth so quickly. So sometimes we would try to slow down the projector just so you could actually see the people in frame a little bit longer. And then right here, there's this kind of whip pan over to the deep end. And There's my Uncle Ray swimming towards us. So there you kind of get an idea of how wide the pool was. And I believe coming up there is a shot of him like diving into the pool. But this pool was a heck of a lot of fun. Here he is. That's Uncle Ray doing a dive into the pool. More shots of the kids in the boat, which I don't really need to narrate because you can see that for yourself. Okay, here we go with the Pocono Mountains. Linder's Hillside Lodge, which actually closed very recently, in fact, but was around for a long time. And here I found some still photos on the internet, postcards and things like that, so you can get an idea of what the place looked like. Because, of course, a lot of this footage, doesn't look all that great. So I figured I'll get some of these images, throw these in, and it'll give you a better sense of what it was like. So there's a fire hose shot of the main sign. I know that was ridiculous, right? It was like, what was that? That was like about a half a second of the sign. Apparently this is the road heading into the lodge. Now, I never went here to the Pocono Mountains. My grandparents, they vacationed up here a lot from what I was told, and they went up here very frequently, but it's like after I was born, for whatever reason, we never went here again. So I heard a lot about this place growing up, but I never actually went here. And we did go on a lot of vacations when I was a kid. There's my grandmother standing above the sign. And, we went on a lot of vacations, but for whatever reason, we never went up to the Poconos. But I know that they really loved going here, and it was a very popular kind of place to hang out. And I know that my uncle, Jack, had been up here, and, my mother, they all kind of went up here on family vacations. And here's another shot of that swimming pool. As you can see, it's not as easy to see the pool in this kind of fire hose spray of panning over here, and let's whip pan over there, and then tilt down, and then we'll tilt up, and then we'll pan over again. Like, I have no idea what he's shooting, but I love my grandfather so much. He means the world to me, but he was not very good with a film camera. That's we'll just put it like that. So again, here we're kind of slowing the footage down to try to make it a little bit more visible, so it's not zipping back and forth all the time. And there was like a bit of footage of this guy. I have no idea who he is. I'm like, is this a total stranger, or was he a relative, or like, why do we have footage of that dude? I have no idea. So I love the little bathing caps, those 1960s bathing caps that all the women are wearing. That's so cool. And yeah, this looks like it was a pretty cool place. I mean, that is that my mom? I don't know. Maybe it's so hard to tell. That might be my mom. My mother is always wearing glasses, so to see her without glasses in these older clips makes it hard for me to tell. Hard for me to recognize my own mother. But yeah, there's a lot of this footage. I mean, there's a lot of footage from the Poconos. Oh, and here we get into the the lovely whip panning through the woods. So this is extremely disorienting. I have no idea it's just like, okay, whip pant across a bunch of trees. And he's also kind of zoomed in, which makes it even more confusing. But it's trees in Pennsylvania. There you go. If you want to know what the trees in Pennsylvania looked like in the 1960s, well, here you are. And if you want to know what the roof of a swimming pool looked like, there you go. All right, so here's some more footage of the cabins. Apparently, the way that this place was set up was that they had kind of like, who's this guy? I have no idea who that was. Okay, and here's some more whip pans of the woods. So apparently, the way this lodge was set up was that they had, these kind of communal areas. They had like a large lodge where people could congregate and, play games and things like that. And then they had the swimming pool area. And then there were all these individual little cabins that you would rent out. So it was just kind of a little retreat sort of place. And like I said, from what I saw, they closed fairly recently. So here is actually some somewhat decent footage of my grandmother. Very young. She was probably in her 40s, early 40s or something when this footage was taken. And again, we had to put it in slow motion just so you could actually see her for more than half a second on screen. And then I believe we cut from my grandmother to my mom. There's my mom. Probably the oldest footage of my mother. She's probably, God, she could still be a teenager here. She might be 18, 19 years old. And yeah, it's the oldest existing footage of my mom right there. That's really nice to see. And more shots of the woods. Yeah. So I mean, where is this? Is this from the driveway? Is this looking out the window of the cabin? Is this next to the swimming pool? I have no idea. It's just the woods zipping by the camera lens very quickly. What is he looking for? Bigfoot? Grandpa, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is nonsense. Okay, so here it looks like these are some of the individual little cabins. And you can see everybody's cars are parked outside, and they would just have these little rental cottages. And I heard from the reviews that I read that this place never really changed. That it kind of had this like really kitschy 1960s sort of vibe to it. Oh, there we go. There's my grandmother and my mom again for a half a second. And the place never really changed. Like the decor was the same, and and I'm talking like I think the place closed in like 2016 or 2017, something like that. So 40 years later, the place was still looking like this, which is kind of neat. Well, no, it's good, closer to 50 years later. So yeah, unfortunately, the place isn't around anymore, but I'm glad that I did find some photos and a little bit of information on the place that my family would stay when they would head out to the Pocono Mountains. And gosh, so much footage of woods. like this is completely disorienting. Okay, there we go. My mother and my grandmother again. So I believe, this is all still the same vacation. I have no idea where this little lake thing is at. I assume that it's somewhere very close to the lodge, but I can't tell you what lake this is or where it's located. I don't know the name of it, but we were never a family that could afford things like a boat, so you're definitely not going to see that. You're just going to see a lot of other people's boats. And yeah, this is just a bit of footage. I tried to clean it up again as best I could. It was really difficult to get the color right and the saturation. I mean, you can see that this footage is bad. It's really bad. I mean, the color is constantly coming in and out, and there's all sorts of burn-ins on the film, and then combine all that with the fact that we really had no idea what the heck we were doing. When my uncle and I transferred this footage, we literally shot this footage off of a paper plate. Okay, we were projecting it onto a paper plate in the back room of our house at 4310 Bearwald. And we did it late at night, so it could be as dark as possible, so there'd be no like ambient light around. And we projected it onto this paper plate as tiny as we could make it. Oh, there's my grandmother again, walking over a bridge. And we made it as small as we could possibly make it, and then just put the high 8 video camera right next to it and kind of zoomed in on the image that was being projected on the plate. So definitely not a professional transfer. And, I didn't know enough back then about video cameras and all the technical stuff. So I'm sure that even if I had known a little bit more of that, I could have set the high 8 camera to some better settings that would have even resulted in nicer footage and a nicer transfer. But this is what we have. And unfortunately, I think we did get rid of all of the original 8mm film after we did this transfer. I'm pretty sure we got rid of it. So this, unfortunately, is all we have. And again, I have no idea what this is. There's my grandmother, and that's it. Half a second of my grandma. But a lot of footage of total strangers, like out in a boat. Okay. Like, what? Dude, come on. Get more footage of grandma and less footage of the strangers on the boats. Okay. Now, you can actually tell that we were shooting this off a plate right now, because if you look at the bottom of the frame, you can see there's that black kind of angle, right? Because the video camera was to the right of the film camera. And I zoomed in as best I could and tried to get the image as straight as I could. But since the camera was like side by side, it was impossible to get a perfectly straight on image. So that's why there's a slight little angle to the whole picture. You probably wouldn't have noticed if I hadn't pointed it out. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on here. Again, man, this color is really bad. I did as much as I could to fix it in the computer. I got it looking a lot better than it was, but there's still there's a weird green cast to it right now, and this is not too bad. See, I mean, that's what makes it tough, because all of a sudden it cuts to footage where, like, oh, that looks pretty good, right? Like, all things considered, that footage isn't too bad. Saturation's pretty nice. The color looks pretty good. But don't ask me where this was or when it was, because I have no clue. So, Harry Bernhardt was the cousin of my grandfather, and I'm not even sure of his wife's name, so unfortunately I didn't put that in. But again, this footage is not very good. It's extremely dark and goes way out of focus. But Harry Bernhardt was my grandfather's cousin, and he became the chief of police in Berea, Ohio. So this is footage of his wedding. And I don't know who that is. She's very pretty, though. And I believe that might be my great-grandparents right there. Yeah, I'm not sure who that guy is, but then that kind of looks like my great-grandmother. Maybe that is Elizabeth again, but maybe it's not. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure who these people are. They can't be any of my other relatives, like my Aunt Bernie and all of them, because they would have been much younger than that. And I guess this is the blushing bride, and Again, unfortunately, I have no idea who she is. There is my grandmother, again looking very young and dashing. And don't know who that is. No idea. Yeah, no idea who any of these people are. But again, this is my grandfather's cousin, not very close relatives, and this is all way before I was born. So, unfortunately, can't give a whole lot of commentary on this part, other than the fact that I know it was Harry Bernhardt and he was the Berea chief of police. And I believe this might be the end of the wedding footage right here, so there's not a whole heck of a lot of it. Okay, Tom, Cap, and Linda Oriold, their wedding. Now, Linda Oriold is my grandfather's niece, and her mother was Elizabeth Oriold, and she was my grandfather's sister. And everybody called her Aunt Toots for whatever reason. When she was growing up, she got the nickname Toots, and it just kind of stuck. And so that's what she was always known as, is Aunt Toots. So Aunt Toots is Linda's mom. And here we see Linda and Tom after the wedding. Now, I have to say, Linda actually sadly passed away a little over a year before I recorded this. And she is my godmother. Linda Cap is my godmother. And God, I am so sad that she passed away, because she's one of those people that was so important to me. Like, I really, really love Linda, and I don't think she knows that. I never really told her when I got older. That right there, that's Nick. That's Linda's brother, and right there is my grandmother again. And look at Linda's. I mean, just look at her smile. My memories of her is of her smiling, like, all the time. She was just one of those kind of people. She had that kind of personality, and when I was a little boy, she was actually around quite a bit. She was like a part of my life a lot. I would say from the time I was born to the time I was maybe like 6, 7, maybe as old as 10 years old. And I saw her very frequently, and she was just the sweetest, happiest person. And it was really cool to see this footage of her wedding and realize that there's Nick smiling too. See, something he definitely has in common with his sister. But it's so wonderful to see this footage, because it just reinforced my memories, right? Like, I remember Linda smiling constantly and always being happy and always laughing. And I see this footage and I'm like, oh my gosh, look, yeah, that's totally the way that I remember her, is always being like that. I mean, of course it is her wedding day, so any woman is going to be smiling and laughing quite a bit, but nevertheless, there's something very special about Linda. I miss her very much. So, Football Hall of Fame. Again, I grabbed a few modern day photos of the Football Hall of Fame just so we get a better idea what it looks like. So there you go. That's the Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. And this is some home movie footage when my family went there. Now this, actually, I have no idea what this is. I just kind of threw this in with the Football Hall of Fame footage because I didn't know where else to put it. But like, I think this is actually Canton. I think this is the same city. This is Canton, Ohio. But for some reason, he just shot random footage of the neighborhoods. I don't know. um, like, I really have no idea where this is at or why it's even on here. Now, you keep in mind, like, the way that I'm putting this together is chronological. The way that it was shot on the original film reels, right? So that means that, this footage happened after Linda's wedding, and it happened before they went to the Football Hall of Fame. So I just included this with the Hall of Fame, assuming that this is maybe parts of Canton. I don't know. I don't know why this is here. So yeah, that's what we got going on. It's nice, it's nice. It's pretty footage. It's nice rolling hills in Ohio somewhere. I assume it's in Ohio. But I really can't tell you anything else about it. Have absolutely no context whatsoever for what this is. Pretty big hills. There's not a lot of parts of Ohio that have hills that are this big. So, yeah, a lot of Ohio is very flat until you're, over closer to like Pennsylvania and stuff. And so now, okay, so here we go. This is the actual Hall of Fame. And you can see really bad, really bad footage. Unfortunately, looks like my grandfather was messing around with the exposure a lot. Things get really blown out and almost impossible to see. But this is the old sign that was out in front of the building. And when we get to a little wider shot, you'll see, the building has not changed at all. That sign doesn't exist anymore. That's a very 1960s looking sign. And looks like we did a little too much slow motion here. Because, what is this? What are we looking at? And, well, there's pretty rainbow colors as the camera is constantly trying to compensate and adjust. It doesn't know what it's doing. It's going, hey, let's make it blue. Let's make it yellow. It's just kind of, is it just randomly picking colors? Okay, so now we're kind of panning over a little bit towards the building and the front doors. And you have never seen a longer, slower pan of the Football Hall of Fame. And then right there, you can see that's my Uncle Jack and my grandmother, Lenore, exiting the building. Obviously a very set up shot. You could see how they were just kind of waiting there by the door. They probably said, I'm sure my grandfather was like, just wait by the door, and when I pan over, you can walk out. So that's the two of them walking out of Football Hall of Fame. Now we finally get back to real-time footage, no more slow motion. And I believe that might be it. So you can see that sign is pretty darn huge. It was kind of hard to tell when it was really zoomed in. A little fade out, a little fade back in. Why not? And then here, he kind of pans up to get more of the building, but unfortunately gets blown out again right about there. So yeah, you really can't see the spire on top. But you saw it in the other photos that I included, so you get an idea of what the Football Hall of Fame looks like. I've personally never been there because I really do not care at all about football. Right there is just the final shot, zooming by on the road. Now here we go with Schoenbrunn Village. And once again, I looked on the internet, grabbed a few photos, modern day images, so you can get a really clear picture of what this place looks like. This is just one of those kind of, historic places. It's run by the Ohio Historical Society. It was one of the first villages ever built in Ohio. back in, I believe, 1772 was when it was founded. And it actually didn't exist for very long because, of course, 1772, that's just a couple of years right before the Revolutionary War started. So the results of the Revolutionary War made it a little difficult to stay in this particular village, and it was abandoned. But now it is preserved by the Historical Society, and this is just a tiny little bit of footage of when my family visited this place. I don't remember them ever talking about it. It was probably just one of those, hey, let's go down here for an afternoon. Maybe when they went to the Football Hall of Fame, they said, let's stop here too, right? And my grandfather shot a little bit of footage. And of course, you can see it has never changed from, there we go, there's my grandmother again. And from the 1700s to the 1960s to the 21st century, the place still looks the same. Good old Schoenbrunn Village in Ohio. This is boar hunting in Tennessee. Now, the only people that you'll see in this footage from my family is my grandfather, Paul, my Uncle Jim, and my Aunt Linda. And apparently, from what I have been told, this was a place in Tennessee where you could pay a certain amount of money and they would take you out into the woods to hunt wild boar, and you were like guaranteed to get a boar when you went to this place. So that's kind of what this is all about. They went out there to go boar hunting, and they did get boars. And I remember growing up, there was a big boar head mounted on the wall in our basement, and apparently this is where my grandfather shot the boar whose head was on the wall. There we go. There's my Aunt Linda with her very 1960s haircut. There's my grandfather Paul, again looking real young. He's probably, I would guess, his late 40s, early 50s in that picture. More random footage here of just of the woods of Tennessee. And I don't even know the name of this place. They didn't provide the name. They didn't they didn't get a shot of like a sign or anything like that. So I couldn't tell you where this was, but it was some place in Tennessee where they guarantee that you'll get a boar. And lots of just random footage of trailers, and I mean, it still looks like Tennessee, right? I guess in the last 50 years, Tennessee hasn't changed. Still lots of trees and trailers and old cars. Beautiful place. And totally out of focus. Now, this is one of those times when, like, I think this might be my fault. Like, this blurry footage is due to the high 8 camera and not the original film. And here, of course, my grandfather again. There's actually a decent amount of footage of my grandpa in this, which is nice to have. So I'm assuming that my Uncle Jim was probably the one shooting this. Because, like I said, to my knowledge, it was just Jim, Linda, and my grandpa. There's my Uncle Jim, just making goofy faces at the camera. I'm glad that this is in here. That's really funny. It's moments like this that really make me wish that this camera had sound. And here's my Aunt Linda, not knowing that she's on film. There's my grandfather. What? the heck is that? Okay. Hunter's quarters. Keep out. No visitors. Okay. There's still no sign, though, to tell us the name of the place. Yeah, I see this footage, just the way that the focus is dropping. Unfortunately, I think that might be my fault. If I had known more what I was doing with the video camera, I could have probably kept all this in focus. Because I do think that when I did the transfer, I don't think I even had it on manual focus. So if the footage started to get weird, the high 8 camera would lose focus. So, oh, looks like there's a wild boar. There we go. There's a boar strutting through the woods. Yeah, there he goes. So I guess there were a lot of boar there. That's why they guaranteed that you would get one if you came hunting at this place. And that is just a ghost. A random ghost in the woods. What is that? Oh, there's my Aunt Linda. That's nice. This is actually really good footage. It's very clear, and you can actually see her. And that was probably Jim, since he's shooting her butt. What was that all about? And this is pretty nice too. Actually in focus. It really does look like a nice place. Very very quaint little farm there. Got the little pond. Got some ducks going on. Yeah, it looks like it was a cool, nice place. It's too bad that I'm the one narrating this, and that it's not the people who were actually there who could tell us a whole lot more about it. And tell us their memories of what it was like. But at least we have it. And who is this? I have no idea who that was. Oh, there's my Aunt Linda. Okay. And this, I think, is my grandfather. I know there is one really long shot of him starting in the distance and getting close. Yeah, this is him, because he keeps making goofy faces. Like as he gets closer, he keeps making the same silly face the whole time. There he goes, sticking his fingers in his mouth and running. What is he doing? Yeah, it's my grandfather just being a goofball. Oh, he was playing with the boar tusks. That's what he was doing. He was pretending like they were tusks on him. And then here we got some revolver shots with my Aunt Linda and my Uncle Jim. My Uncle Jim was actually a Cleveland police officer, so he knew a little bit about handling a firearm. He didn't know that much because he did put a hole through the kitchen cabinets at our house when he was cleaning his gun. So I have to say that I am much more skilled with firearms than my Uncle Jim, because I've never shot my house yet. I shouldn't have said yet, right? Yeah, I've never shot my house. So yeah, it looks like Linda's doing pretty good there. She's she's just doing a single action there. I assume it's probably a double action revolver. And here we go with some of the boars that were I'm sure not shot with revolvers. probably shot with some rifles. But yeah, I assume these are boars that my uncle and my grandfather killed. I don't think they would shoot footage of other people's boars. So don't know which one was which. Both the heads look the same. They're both black, and that's what was hanging up in the basement. But I know they did do this a number of times. I think they did go more than once. So and I don't know who that is. I assume that's some guy that worked at the place. There's my grandfather. Always smoking, that guy. Yeah, see, I wish there was audio. Wish we knew what they were talking about. But here we go. Here's my grandfather with his boar kill. Like I said, I'm not sure what... Oh, there, he's pointing. So I guess that's his. The one on the right is the one my grandfather got. Well, there you go. At least there's some... At least there's a little bit of communication in here. Even though there's no sound. So we could figure out who got what. I believe this is almost the end of the 1960s footage. Again, my Uncle Jim and my Aunt Linda. He's playing with it. Why is he playing with the... he's playing with the mouth of the boar. I do think that there's another shot here. Oh, feeding horses. God, I love doing that. I'll tell you, man, if you feed a horse some apples, that horse will just love you forever. Especially when you grab them off of a tree when they can't reach them. Oh, yeah. That's definitely a really good way to befriend a horse. There's a cute little pony there. All right, and looks like we're chopping up the boar. I don't know what they did with them. Did they eat them? Did they well, he looks like he's skinning them or something. I don't know what you do with boar hide, because it's pretty rough stuff. There we go. There's the shot of my uncle holding up the boar. I have actually a similar photograph of him after he was deer hunting, where I'm like right next to him. But there we go. That was it. That's all of the home movies of my family from the 1960s.